Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm back to talk about, I think I've kind of jumped the bus a little bit with how obscure with the Pokemon we're getting in ADV, but we're talking about Scizor, who is a much more prominent Pokemon in Gen 4, even going into Gens like 5, 6, 7, much more prominent. In Generation 3, it had a let's just say an understated role in the metagame, and we'll get into that soon. But I don't talk about Pokemon that I don't think have some value, right? Or I'm not gonna do a video on Spinarak, um, but uh, Scizor, kind of an interesting Pokemon, and let's get into it. So here's Vapicuno's viability rankings. As we can see, uh, it's not even on the D tier here, so we'll probably find it somewhere in the E tier. Um, no, it's actually not there at all, huh? That's really weird. Yeah, Scizor, it's considered not a great Pokemon. It is kind of even barely in the UUBL ranking. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I should have done a little bit more research if I could have. If Scizor was banned from UU, or if it was considered like literally borderline OU, which is what BL is supposed to mean. Um, and just for future reference, I'm going to continue to use Vapicuno's viability rankings. One, because it's more recent than the 2014 rankings from McMegan. Although it's not all that different, to be honest. I think the only difference is that Salamence and Jirachi switched places, and because it's just a little easier for me to spread out Vapicunos here than it was for McMegan's. Um, but in any case, I'm not going to leave you guys in the dark about where Scizor is considered to be ranked, sort of. There's an Excel spreadsheet. I assume that it's made by Gold Mason, because Gold Mason was the one who posted it into the forums, but that might not be true. It might be made by somebody else, just reported on by Gold Mason. This survey was conducted over 25 of ADV's most active and best tournament players, like, for example, ABR, McMegan, Bedummy, like the people that you would expect to see in the top 16 of a ADV revival, or the people who are playing Gen 3 on their SPL teams. Scizor was ranked 61 out of all the Pokemon that were ranked. I think it was almost 75 or 80 Pokemon that were ranked. Of the people who ranked Scizor, because not every person ranked Scizor, some people probably didn't even think it was worth being ranked. Pixie 909 ranked it the highest at number 42. Others, Mielke, I'm sorry if I mispronounced some of these, Fear and Mead, 51, 52, and 53 respectively. In the case of Pixie 909, I note that they ranked it higher than Steelix and Registeel, who are two other UUBL steel types. Mielke, Fear, and Mead, I am not entirely sure if they did rank Steelix and Registeel, but if they did, then they ranked it higher than Scizor, because Scizor was like basically the bottom of all of their respective rankings. As you can see, Scizor is like just above Gorbis, which I don't know if I've even seen Gorbis on ladder. I have seen Alakazam, Articuno, and Sceptile before, so it's not like a complete non-factor, but yeah, Scizor is quite rare, and we're gonna discuss maybe if the people who ranked it are missing something. but probably not. I'm just not gonna lie. Scizor is not great. But let's kind of talk about why I'm saying all this. So I have Scizor's base stats up in the top right corner of the screen. It's a little small. I don't know if you can see it that well, but notably, it's got a 130 base attack. That's pretty high. That's almost as high as things like Metagross, Salamence, and Tyranitar, who are sitting at 135, 134 area. It'll be higher than things like Snorlax, which are only 110. So that's not bad. And the defense at 100, you love to see that. But compared to some of the other steel types in this format, Scizor's bulk is a little bit middling, and its utility is pretty limited. So here I've got all of the steel types. Well, all of the what I would classify as defensive steel types that would commonly be used in OU. I know that Registeel is ranked UUBL, but it has enough usage that it's worth noting here. I have in green all the stats that are higher than Scizor's, in red all the ones that are lower than Scizor's, and then Jirachi's defense is the same, so it just stayed gray. And then I have all the utility moves that each of these Pokemon get, or like the common ones. I didn't bother including Toxic because in theory any of these Pokemon, including Scizor, could use Toxic. Some of them are much better at using Toxic than others, but I digress. So Scizor actually does have a better HP and special defense than Skarmory. So in theory, I guess you could say that Scizor is a better special wall than Skarmory, but that kind of unravels when you consider the common sets and what they're going to invest in. You know, 252 HP and special defense Skarmory is a lot bulkier than like your standard Scizor set, which is going to run mostly attack. But I guess that's maybe, again, not a fair comparison. Scizor could be especially bulkier, but it doesn't have access to spikes or roar. At least I don't believe so. It's definitely not spikes, roar. I'm pretty sure it does not get. And as compared to its fellow bug steel type, Fortress does not get a move to paralyze. It does not get rapid spin, doesn't get spikes, doesn't get explosion. And I'm considering explosion a utility move, in part because it's good at generating momentum. Yeah, Scizor doesn't get any of these. No way to inflict a burn, no way to wish, nothing like that. So you say, okay, well, but that's not like playing to Scizor's strengths here. Like, all of these Pokemon have significantly lower attack stats than Scizor's. The one that comes the closest is Jirachi with the base 100. But Jirachi doesn't get great physical moves, so it's not often incentivized to run a physical set. But when we're talking about physical sets, and especially as a steel type, the gold standard comparison is Metagross. Metagross has superior base stats across the board. Literally every single base stat is higher than Scizor's, which is kind of shocking, honestly. And when it comes to an attacking steel type, Metagross by far takes the cake because it has unique access to Meteor Mash. Well, okay, that's not entirely true. I'm pretty sure Deoxys also gets Meteor Mash, but Deoxys is not in OU, so we don't really have to worry about it. Scizor does get Stab Steel Wing. Not every steel type gets access to that. In fact, I believe Scizor and Skarmory are the only ones that do. But Steel Wing is a 70 base power move. That's a lot lower than 100 base power for Meteor Mash. And Steel Wing is also only, I believe, 90% accurate. Let me check just to make sure. As you could probably guess, I'm not a big fan of Steel Wing, so I don't really use it on my Scizor. But Steel Wing, yes, 90% accurate. 40 PP though, that's actually not that bad. It's kind of insane actually for a 70 base power move, but I digress. Steel Wing does have a secondary effect with it has a 10% chance to raise your defense by 1 stage, which frankly is kind of good, but Meteor Mash is 10% to raise, or excuse me, 20% to raise attack by 1 stage, I think is far superior. Metagross also gets way better coverage with Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Explosion. And it can even run special sets, with Psychic, Stab Psychic, Hidden Power Fire. Scizor, yes, could run Hidden Power Fire, but base 55 special attack, it's not worth it. So, what does Scizor do that is unique from the other Pokemon that were just mentioned? Well, one possible use case for it is as a baton passer. I believe that this set was a vestige of before the baton pass changes. To me, it reads like it would be a good part of a chain, but not necessarily the best primary baton passer. Note that in Gen 3, only one Pokemon is allowed to have stat boosting capability plus baton pass. That's kind of like an asterisk there, like attacking moves like Silverwind that can boost your attacks, I don't think count as stat boosting capability. I think it's literally moves like Iron Defense, Swords Dance, or abilities like Speed Boost that are considered for that. But in any case, Scizor could be your Iron Defense baton passer. It could also be Swords Dance. I think Swords Dance is not bad, given that Scizor's got a pretty good defense, or a good defensive profile with a good defensive type. Although it is running into competition with Celebi over that role. Celebi has a lot better longevity because it has access to Recover and Leech Seed. And while it's not necessarily a better physical attacker, given that it has a pretty poor physical move pool and a lower attack stat, it can still threaten certain things with the right hidden power type, and that's good enough, I think, for your dedicated baton passer. Scizor is a little bit less good, but as you can see in this write-up here, as far as resisting a normal type attack goes, Scizor is the only baton passer that can do it. Well, aside from Mawile, but no, don't use Mawile, please. So yeah, you're basically going to want to come in on something like a Snorlax or potentially Tyranitar, because you're threatening it with Silverwind, and boost on those and then get the baton pass off. If I would make an update to this set, I'm a little skeptical about Substitute. Maybe if you were going to do Iron Defense Substitute Silverwind, that could work, but I think maybe instead of maybe you run Silverwind instead of Substitute, and then you just accept that you are probably only going to be able to pass one Iron Defense or one Swords Dance on most teams, if at all. But yeah, it is kind of interesting utility. There are not very many Pokemon that get this, and then Pokemon that get Iron Defense plus Baton Pass is also not a super duper common occurrence. Let me just check it just to make sure. Your other options would be Gorebyss and Huntail, and Mawile, but I digress. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, but this is not really the Scizor set that I would run. Here are some standard sets for you. I have a little asterisks here next to the speed stat to tell you what raw speed stat Scizor gets to and why you would get there. So your standard Swords Dance Scizor, which is running a little bit of bulk, a little bit of speed, and then maxing out the attack stat. pretty good for threatening some of the common Pokemon of the tier. Stab Silverwind, especially if you're in Swarm range, is really, really devastating to Psychic types, especially Celebi. It also handles Tyranitar pretty well. And then HP Rock is just really good coverage into things like Zapdos, Moltres, Charizard, Houndoom, if you see that. And yeah, like that covers a lot of your bases. Not perfect coverage. You're a little bit tough into the pure steel type Registeel, if you ever see that. But it's good enough to get the job done against most of the tier. Then you could run Choice Band, which is even more immediate power. It's kind of funny to see Quick Attack there, but there are a lot of Choice Band Pokemon that could run Quick Attack that would opt to, because, you know, you would like to have a move that is clickable in some cases. Double Edge, I guess, is clickable in some cases. Like, if you need a mid-ground play into a team that has a lot of potential defensive switches. But, you know, it's kind of... You would rather just go for Silverwind, and basically you're going to fish for the Omni Boost. If you get the Omni Boost with a Choice Band, like, you're you're in big business there. HP Rock or HP Ground. HP Ground is going to be helpful at hitting the Steel types. Also potentially Rock types, although like that would be primarily Tyranitar, but possibly Regirock as well. Steel Wing is also good at hitting those, though, so I don't know if you necessarily need to rely on HP Ground for that. It's also probably your best click into Magneton. Magneton, especially the ones that run HP Fire, are kind of dangerous for Scizor, and are usually going to threaten the Oko, especially against this Choice Band set. So your best bet would be to hope that you outspeed the Magneton, and then get off your hidden power ground to kill it. But again, that's quite wishful thinking. I said at the bottom that Metagross provides more immediately threatening versions of these. I mean, Metagross doesn't get necessarily like bug coverage. You could use hidden power bug, and that would be almost as strong. At least it's threatening all the same things as Silverwind does. And Metagross doesn't get Sword Stance, but clicking Meteor Mash, if you get the raise, that's, again, probably good enough. So, yeah, Scizor, with these standard sets, it's running into competition with Metagross. So, as you can imagine, I'm not really a big advocate for all of these sets. We're going to do a little hard pivot here to talk about some items in ADV. And this will become relevant as you'll see in the next couple slides, but just stick with me here. We're going to talk about some items. So in ADV, there are basically 3 items: Leftovers, Choice Band, and Lumberry. Yes, other items exist, but for almost every Pokemon, you're going to run one of those items, and for really almost every Pokemon, it's just going to be Leftovers. But like things like Aerodactyl and Salamence and Dugtrio, etc., appreciate Choice Band. Things like Metagross, Tyranitar, potentially Suicune, maybe, I don't know, appreciate Lumberry. Probably not Suicune, probably just wants the Leftovers. If you're running a really offensive Suicune with no HP, or sorry, with no rest, then maybe. But there's another class of items. I call them the stat boosting berries. I don't know if they have an official name for all of them, but it includes all of these items below: the Lychee Berry, Ganlon Berry, Pitaya, Apricot, Salac, and Starf. Of these, the green arrowed ones, which I'm saying are the Lychee and the Salac. I kind of go back and forth whether I say Lychee or Lychee. I'm going to say Lychee. I'm going to try to stick to that. Lychee and Salac are somewhat common. Not super duper common, but there are some pretty notable sets that will use them. If you've ever played with a fighting type in ADV, you've probably been tempted to run the Salac Berry, Heracross, Medicham, maybe sometimes Blaziken would like to have the speed boost, so they can outspeed everything and then threaten with massive fighting type moves, and they usually have the coverage that they need to hit the flying types that would otherwise come in. Lychee Berry, it's really only seen on baton passers, and sometimes Aerodactyl will run it. It will substitute down to 1 HP, or basically 1 HP. Get the Lychee boost, and then it's like having a choice band Aerodactyl that can switch its moves at the cost of not being able to take any hit. But then again, Aerodactyl is not super duper bulky, so it's usually not taking it might only take 1 hit anyway. So the Pitaya Berry and the Starf Berry are sparingly used. Pitaya, you would think, would have symmetry with the Lychee Berry, but a lot of the special attackers don't really want the special attack boost at the cost of most of their HP. You think about things like Zapdos and Moltres and Suicune. These are things that like to be at high HP so that they can pivot around. So yeah, there's pretty limited use. I think maybe Starmie would be a decent user of this, but once again, even Starmie would like to not be at low HP all the time. Salac is, or sorry, I already talked about Salac. Starf is really niche. It's going to be used on baton passers. I've seen it on lead Vaporeon, who will sub down, try to get the Starf boost, and then pass it to whatever it is most useful for. The Starf is very inconsistent because you'll get a random stat. So if you get +2 special defense against a Fizz offense team, well, that's not great. You're not going to be able to do much with that. And likewise, +2 defense against a special offense team is not great. I guess unless you're trying to block Dugtrio from getting a OHKO on something. But in any case, the Ganlon and the Apricot, which boost the defenses, are basically never used, and it's pretty apparent why. Going down to 25% HP and then getting a defense boost, most Pokemon are just going to die anyway when they're that low. So you're not going to be able to do anything with it. And because you don't have the passive recovery of leftovers, you're not really in a great position to get yourself back up to full health. You might be able to with rest or recover if you get that, but generally there are better items. So how do you activate those stat boosting berries? I kind of alluded to substitute earlier, but we'll explain kind of what the premise of this is. When you make a substitute, you'll deal 25% damage to yourself. And the substitute will come in having the raw HP that you sacrifice to make it. So for example, if I have a Pokemon let's say Suicune, who's got 400 HP, and I use substitute, that substitute will come in with 100 HP, and my Suicune will be left at 300 HP. Why does that matter? Well, if you're up against a Pokemon that deals less than 25%, let's say it would have dealt 80 damage to Suicune, then the substitute will take that, and then they will attack again and deal another 80 damage to the substitute, which is enough to break the substitute. But the additional damage is not dealt to Suicune, it just goes to waste. So that's like 60 HP of damage that's not accounted for. So Substitute can be really good on bulky Pokemon like Suicune. It also blocks certain status moves like Thunder Wave, Toxic, Will-O-Wisp, so it's really nice. But for the sake of boosting or these stat boosting berries, it's dealing damage to us so that we can get into range. So you could have your HP at a multiple of 4 so that when you substitute on the third time, you'll go down to exactly 25% HP and the stat boosting berry will proc. Some Pokemon like that, like for example Suicune is a pretty common one with the Salac berry, because there are certain hits that Suicune could live with 25%, that it obviously wouldn't live with like 1 HP. So it would prefer to keep the HP higher, get the Salac boost so that it can start spamming those Hydro Pumps. You could alternatively make it so that your HP is 1 higher than a multiple of 4. If you know some math, like your HP stat mod 4, if that's equal to 1, then that's what you need to do a sort of strategy where you substitute yourself down to exactly 1 HP. It's not ultra necessary. You could be left on 2 or 3 HP, and for the vast majority of Pokemon, that is plenty enough to get into the Salac or the stat boosting range. But there's going to be another strategy that we're about to talk about where you might want to be at exactly 1 HP. And that will be on the next slide, so don't worry about it right now. The problems with Substitute, though, is it's kind of inconsistent on slow Pokemon. So if your Pokemon is slower, you're going to get attacked before the Substitute goes off. And if you get attacked by something that deals a lot of damage to you, they might put you out of range to be able to make a Substitute. If you don't have at least 25% of your HP, Substitute will fail as a move. So that could be a problem for slow Pokemon. Another problem is that Roar and Whirlwind will still switch you out. There are other moves that will hit behind your Substitute that could be a problem for you. But Roar and Whirlwind are the most notable because they will get rid of your Substitute and potentially get rid of your boost if you got into the boosting range. And the last is that Permanent Sandstorm is really, really dangerous for Substitute Pokemon, especially the ones that don't run leftovers. So like these stat boosting berry ones. Because you're dealing a bunch of damage to yourself with the Substitute, and you're going to be taking damage over time with the Sandstorm. So that's going to limit your ability to do anything once you get behind a Substitute with the stat boosting berry. You'll be left at like basically dead in 2 turns. So there are some problems there. Another way that you could go about this is with Endure. Endure is a priority move. It's basically like Protect, but instead of stopping the hit from doing any damage to you, it guarantees that you'll live on 1 HP if you're attacked with lethal damage. And also similarly to Protect, it has an increasing chance to fail when you use it consecutively. So Endure can be really nice at catching something by surprise, and is really good when you have a slow Pokemon who deals a lot of damage, but just needs that +1 speed boost to be able to like do much with that damage. So you come in, you take a would-be lethal hit, Endure to 1 HP, get your Salac boost, and now you're faster than the thing that just hit you, and you can counterattack back with major damage. The problem is with Endure is that you kind of waste your turn against status moves. So if somebody spikes or goes for Thunder Wave or something, your Endure doesn't really do anything for you. In fact, it's just harder for you to endure again. So that's kind of bad. Additionally, like secondary effects like Thunderbolt or Fire Blast getting their status, those are things that can really, really destroy an Endure stat boosting Pokemon's ability to do anything. The paralysis makes you so slow, you're probably just gonna get outsped and die to whatever is in front of you. The burn will just kill you because you'll take the burn damage at the end of the turn. And then the last thing is that Sandstorm and I guess priority moves absolutely shut you down. If you go down to 1 HP and you're not immune to Sandstorm damage, you'll just die to the Sandstorm on that turn. Because Endure does not protect you against the damage of non-direct things like Sandstorm, like Poison, like Burn, etc. Priority is pretty rare. You might see it like a Breloom Mach Punch or a Linoon Extreme Speed, or maybe a quick attack from something like Flygon or Scizor. But other than that, they're pretty sparse, so you might not have to worry about priority as much as what you might think if you're coming from a modern gen. Another thing you could do is calc a hit to live at less than 25%. This is usually only seen for lead matchups, so for example, Vaporeon could do this against Zapdos, where it can comfortably live a Thunderbolt in the range, depending on, I guess it kind of depends on the Zapdos set, but not really. So Vaporeon could go an Ice Beam, which is threatening a 2-hit KO on Zapdos, but in between the two turns, it will get the Salac boost so that it is faster than Zapdos, so its Ice Beam is now threatening a kill. In any case, we're going to talk about how this is going to relate to a move called Reversal. So here's Reversal. It is a move that scales in power based on how much HP you have. So if you're above, like if you're at near max HP, it's only a 20 base power move. It's pretty bad. But if you're at really low HP, it could be up to a 200 base power move. So I don't know why, but in Gen 4, the ranges are a little different. We're going to kind of ignore that because it's irrelevant. So this one on the left will tell you what you need for to hit the certain thresholds in Gen 3. For the most part, Endure Pokemon want to go to 1 HP so they can have a 200 base power reversal. Some Pokemon care about what their speed stat is. Care about what their HP stat is. No, sorry, I'm getting myself mixed up here. Most Pokemon are going to be at below this 4% number, even if they don't get quite to 1. But it's really hard to calc yourself to live a hit on 3 HP, so you want to go to 1. And Endure is the only way to get yourself there. You could also proc a stat boosting berry down here at this 1 HP to get extra juice on your sweeping. And now you're probably wondering what all that had to do with Scizor, because I barely even talked about Scizor there. The thing is, because of Sandstorm being so common, most Endure reversal strategies are doomed to fail. So you get your Medicham in, you endure a hit to live on 1 HP, you're about to have the most cracked out reversal, which is one of the strongest moves in the entirety of Gen 3. The problem is, if you take a Sandstorm, the whole strategy's completely messed up. So the thing is, we want a fully evolved Pokemon that gets reversal and is immune to Sandstorm damage. I mean, I guess you could have a not fully evolved Pokemon, but that's going to be so weak. Don't even bother. There are only 2, and they are Scizor and Rhydon. Now let's compare their stats here. While they both have the same attack stat and Rhyhorn has slightly better defenses, Rhyhorn has way worse speed. Base 40 is too slow, really, for Salak to even save it. You're going to be outsped by things like a Jolly Heracross or neutral nature base 100s. So those are pretty common. Needless to say, things like Gengar, Starmie, Dugtrio, who are even faster than that. Scizor, on the other hand, with a +1 boost, will be faster than Dugtrio. Not quite faster than Aerodactyl and Jolteon, but it's fast enough that we could get something out of this. In addition, Scizor has agility, so you could opt to use an agility set to make sure that you're faster than the entire tier, which is quite nice. As for the defenses, while Rhydon does like its defenses, and I think they're pretty good too. If the goal is to get down to 1 HP, your defensive stats are hardly going to matter. So Rhydon is not suited for this strategy. Scizor really is the only one. So what does Smogon have to say about that? Smogon is suggesting that you do Agility and Endure Reversal with Lychee Berry. You could use HP Ghost or Swords Dance, which makes sense because Reversal, the big problem for Reversal is you can't hit Ghost types. So HP Ghost gives you super effective damage into them. It also will help you against the Psychic types. But it's kind of comes at the cost of being able to hit the flying types. Yes, you can still hit them for neutral damage with HP Ghost, but you'd prefer to have something a little stronger. So we'll do a little reading here. Scizor's Reversal does more damage than Heracross's. What that means is that if Heracross is unboosted, so it doesn't have Lychee, it doesn't have a Swords Dance or anything, then at +1, Scizor's Reversal will do more. It's a little bit misleading the way they wrote it, but that is what they mean. Agility ensures that you will go first, meaning that you are going to be faster than Jolteon and Aerodactyl, who are the two most important speed tiers for any Pokemon that's trying to do a speed boosting strategy. And then, yes, Steel will ensure you don't die to Sandstorm. Now, Smogon says don't be tempted to use Salak Berry because you're too slow basically to outspeed Jolteon or Aerodactyl. And then it has a little bit to say about Ninjask, but I digress. I take a little bit of exception to this. Not every team is going to have Jolteon or Aerodactyl on it. And the teams that don't, like Scizor is perfectly fine to Salak Berry and get ahead of them. And for the teams that do, you can do a little bit of playing around that, particularly with spreading paralysis, which is maybe a little bit of foreshadowing for what our team is going to be like. But Scizor, as you see here, I'm suggesting, in fact, that you do what Smogon tells you not to do and run an Endure Salak Scizor. What this does is it frees up a move slot for us to click Swords Dance instead, which a Swords Dance Scizor is extremely dangerous because it's got such a high attack stat. And I'm going to use HP Rock on this Scizor because I think it's more important to guarantee Okos on things like Zapdos, Moltres, Charizard, and have a really strong move to hit something like Skarmory. If Skarmory wants to stay in and click spikes, we Swords Dance and HP Rock, then we're chipping heavily into it. That of course that would be before we're at 1 HP, because obviously Reversal is just gonna get there on Skarmory, but it's a nice neutral click there. HP Ghost can be helpful, but I have something in mind for Gengar, as we'll talk about. But let's talk about the EVs here. We're going to outspeed Tyranitar, which is, like, that's gravy. But we're also going to outspeed 252 neutral speed, nature, base 75s, which basically just means Claydol and Smeargle. Smeargle is commonly going to run the plus speed nature, so that maybe doesn't matter, and Claydol is not usually going to run that much speed, but I figure that this is more helpful than investing too heavily in our bulk, because our idea is we're going to want to go to 1 HP eventually anyway, so let's just make sure that our speed gets us to where we need to go. We don't quite speed tie a max speed Vaporeon unless they mess up their HP electric EVs, or sorry, their IVs is what I mean. Because HP electric does not require you to run a 30 speed IV like HP rock does, so that's a little bit unfortunate. And yeah, but with the Salac boost, we will outspeed Jolly Dugtrio, which is really important here. You could alternatively run a little bit slower. The slowest I would ever go with this sort of set is 244 speed, so you're still outspeeding Tyranitar at base. That's really important because you might be able to get an extra Swords Dance off. If you don't outspeed Tyranitar at base, then you're having to click Endure one turn sooner. And yeah, that's basically it for the set. Let's talk about the team. So this team, I took the 6 and many of the sets from a user called CDIJK16, who is featured on Jimothy Cool's channel. Not necessarily the player, but their team was. But I made a few little tweaks to it. So the idea with this team is it's a really physical hyper offense team where most of the Pokemon are just looking to trade, particularly like our Explosion Metagross and our Self-Destruct Snorlax, so that we can get down to a point where Scizor can sweep the game. Once all the threats that Scizor can't handle are removed, then Scizor wins. And it's a pretty one-dimensional game plan, but that's what we got to do to make Scizor do its thing. We have a Pursuit Tyranitar, which is a common Breloom partner, and the reason why is because it forces damage on Gengar. And Gengar is a little bit of a problem for our Scizor set, because even at +2, we don't OHKO a defensive Gengar. And it's not even a guaranteed OHKO on offensive Gengar, which is a little bit sad. We could afford to run Adamant, then we could remedy that issue, but we can't really. Which is, I guess, maybe an argument for why you shouldn't run Salac Scizor, but forget it. I want to be cool and unique by stealing somebody else's team. In any case, Metagross and Snorlax, they're gonna boom on things that are too tough for Scizor to break through, and things that are commonly lured in by these Pokemon like Swampert, Suicune, and Claydol. And then lastly, Gyarados is there to threaten some of the bulky waters that don't have HP Electric. We'll talk a little bit about some move options here, because I did change some things. You'll see to spread sleep and paralysis with the Breloom in the first line. We will we'll get into that. All right, that's enough Safari Zone for now. Let's get into our scene here. Set the scene. Got the loop going. Got one of the best tracks in all of Gen 3, the Battle Frontier Brain theme. Now, let's just get into the battles here. Breloom in it versus Metagross. Breloom is commonly going to outspeed Metagross. I have a max speed Breloom, unless you're running max speed Metagross, which no shot you are. I can just get the Spore off, and I go for a Focus Punch. The Metagross opts to stay in. I go for a Sky Uppercut because it has a roll to kill. I don't get it, but I get another turn of sleep, so Mach Punch is guaranteed. I don't know why my opponent decided to just sack their Metagross off rip. Seems a little bit crazy to me, but I end up in against an offensive Gengar who's got HP Grass. I have a roll to die there, so I'm not gonna risk that. So I'll go to Snorlax, and then I can just Shadow Ball. That would have killed Gengar even if it Will-O-Wisp me. Tyranitar comes in. I'm gonna click Focus Punch here to catch the Tyranitar going for a Dragon Dance. If it didn't go for Dragon Dance, that's fine. I just needed it to not be at +1 on my switch out. Now that Zapdos is in, I'm just going to self-destruct. If, in that case, I figured it was a win-win. If Zapdos went for Substitute, I would break the Substitute. If it went for Thunderbolt, it would just straight up die, which is the best case scenario and what happened. If there was a switch to Gengar, I could switch back to Tyranitar and it guarantees the kill because I will heal out of Hidden Power range and Pursuit kills whether Gengar switches or not. So we see Starmie come in on my Tyranitar. That's still fine for me because I get the HP that I need, and I will go into Cloyster. So something I should say here is that this team took me a really long time to figure out how to use, and I lost a lot of games with it. I was experimenting with using Cloyster as another boom option and a spiker and potentially a rapid spinner. I think I generally prefer Gyarados, and we'll kind of see a little bit of the evolution of this team in a moment, or as these games go on, but Cloyster can come in and take a Hydro Pump from Starmie. It's going to just die to a Thunderbolt, and I'll have to sack it here, so not really going to see what Cloyster gets to do. But now I will go to Metagross, who I just explode with. Good catch by the Gengar, but same issue as earlier. I can just come in with Tyranitar, force the kill. Gengar will actually explode on me so that the opponent can get into Starmie. Tyranitar is dead, and now I can go Scizor here. So Scizor guaranteed lives a Hydro Pump from Starmie, so I can go for a Swords Dance. But my opponent goes to Registeel, and I cannot really break through a Registeel, especially if it opts to Curse Boost. I won't have a strong enough reversal. But Breloom can come in and force a Sleep, and then get a Focus Punch. I get a critical hit, which did matter, but only mattered if the Registeel was going to wake up on the next turn. So Breloom can just stay in and take this Ice Beam and die. If it didn't die, it would have got the Spore off, and then I probably would have won the game. But as I show, Scizor lives. I am actually in Salak range now, but I'm going to Endure so that I can kill with Reversal, because HP Rock does not get there on Starmie. Reversal is actually even a roll, but I do get it's in my favor, and I get the roll, and I win. And this is going to be a pretty common scenario with Scizor, is that it's going to be the last Mon living at 1 HP. So if you like these exciting games where, oh my gosh, it was down to the very last hit, then Scizor is really good for that, although there's not a lot of drama there. The only drama really was if I missed the roll that was in my favor, or if I got paralyzed by the Thunderbolt. But neither of those things happened, so we're kind of good. So now, let's take a look at this game. Breloom versus a Zapdos lead. This is one of the leads that I will tend to switch on, because if it has Drill Peck, then that's just really nasty for me, and I don't like that. I can go to Snorlax. Just chip it down with a Body Slam. If I ever get a para here, then this is really good for me. I don't get the para, but I also don't get para'd, so I'll take that. In comes Dugtrio to trap my Snorlax. Goes for Aerial Ace so that my Breloom can't come in, but now Metagross can come in. And I'm actually well, as this team originally was, and as I think is kind of a good idea, I'm actually a mixed Metagross. So my opponent is opting to switch back and forth between Steelix and Blissey. Some would call Steelix the physical Blissey. I would not be one of those people, but some might call it that. So we're actually seeing what's really nice about Metagross there is that it can handle the steel types that sometimes could be difficult for our buddy Scizor if we can't get down to reversal range. But I can sleep this Doug Trio and I can go for a Focus Punch. My opponent opts to sack the Blissey, which is kind of crazy, but getting Raikou in is pretty nice. I'm just going to Sky Uppercut because I don't want this thing to get Substitute up. Now, that could be bad if I missed, but I figured that my opponent might not want to risk going for so many substitutes there. My opponent also has Porygon, which is very cool. Lines up with my last video really nicely. I get a Crit Crunch, which is kind of unfortunate because I would just kill the Porygon there. No chance for it to get its status off on me. But my Tyranitar is really, really bad against substitute Calm Mind Raikou. I'd get a very lucky Spadef drop there, which will allow my Tyranitar to threaten to 1v1, but I actually don't get the roll that I need there. So I go to Scizor now. Scizor was guaranteed to live the +1 Thunderbolt, as far as I could tell, so I just go for the kill with HP Rock there. And now I can get my Swords Dance boost against a guaranteed sleep turn of Doug Trio and then kill it with Reversal. So that's pretty good. Next game. Lead Arcanine. This is very rare, but sometimes happens. Goes for Overheat and misses it. That's a little bit unfortunate. I go for a Body Slam, don't get the Para, and now I can go to Gyarados. So this is a version of the team that has Gyarados. So I take that. I can't recall if that was... I think that was banded damage, and that confirmed it for my Gyarados, which is pretty nice. I go for a Meteor Mash just to get some damage, potentially get the boost. I don't. I get Hydro Pumped, and then I blow up. So I go to Breloom, threatening to outspeed. It's possible that Calm Mind Suicune with Hydro Pump is running faster than Breloom, but I was also threatening a Mach Punch, so I was kind of seeing what my opponent might do. My opponent, luckily for me, switches to Arcanine, and I get some nice chip on it. I will go to Tyranitar to take whatever it's got. It does not have leftovers as an item. I think usually the lead Arcanine with Overheat is running White Herb, so that it can Overheat and then get rid of its minus status to force a different switch in. It's kind of interesting. But he's got Donphan. Donphan is a Pokemon that was ranked slightly higher than Scizor. So let's see if this Donphan puts in more work than my Scizor. Given that it's my video, the answer is no. But in any case, I get a nice Spore onto the Suicune. It's pretty easy. And I get a pretty free Focus Punch into whatever. It hasn't revealed a good Focus Punch switch. Probably because his team doesn't have one. Jolteon comes in, threatens the kill with HP Ice, so I will go to Snorlax. I unfortunately get crit, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Metagross comes in. I go for a Body Slam. I generally like to click Body Slam into Metagross because if I paralyze it, then Snorlax is forcing a trade. But I don't know. Maybe I could have clicked Earthquake there. My Gyarados goes down, not doing much. I go for Stun Spore and miss it on the Metagross, but the Metagross misses the Meteor Mash. So we get another chance to do this. And I get the full para there, which is pretty fortunate for me. I'm not going to lie. I'll just Sky Uppercut for damage. And I get crit. I don't think the crit mattered. But now that it's paralyzed, I can go for a Fire Blast pretty freely with my Tyranitar. I will opt to trade with this Donphan, who does not quite kill my Tyranitar, which is pretty nice. Pursuit is a guaranteed kill, so I will go for it. Jolteon comes in. I think I would just sack this Tyranitar. No need to sack any more Snorlax HP. And it looks like we're in a bad spot because it's a 4-on-2, but the Suicune's asleep and the Metagross is paralyzed, so that's pretty nice. I go for a Shadow Ball, seeing potentially this could be a Ghost type in the back, and I wanted to be able to hit that if it was. It is not, in fact, it is Roselia. Very, very strange, but it gets the Aromatherapy off, which is probably one of the worst things that could have happened to me in this position. Now I will go for Focus Punch to try to catch a Metagross switching in, because I don't have, I do not have Earthquake on the Snorlax, so Suicune comes in. Suicune goes for Rest. I decide to blow up because I'm at such low HP, and now it's Scizor versus Metagross. So here, it's a little bit of a 50-50. If I go for Endure, and my opponent goes for Explosion, I simply win the game. If I go for Swords Dance and my opponent goes for anything other than Explosion, I will live it, and I'm guaranteed going to get the kill afterwards. So I go for Swords Dance, and my opponent goes for Earthquake. I sort of figured that my opponent wouldn't, because at this stage, as you can see, we're at pretty low elo. I figured that my opponent would greedily want more elo for getting a win, so or not understand what my Scizor could do. So I will get my Swords Dance boost. I will endure Salac. Salac is kind of not needed. I just needed the extra damage for reversal, and I get the win there. So, yes, I mean, you can kind of see we dropped a lot of elo. But I promise, this last game is against a really high-rated player. This guy is in the 1600s, as you can see. Lead Breloom versus Lead Smeargle. I don't like that. Smeargle's usually max speed, so it will be faster. I decided to let my Metagross go to sleep. I don't know if that was the best play, but unfortunately I get Wisp on my Snorlax here, so this is all falling apart for me. I'm revealing my entire team here. Tyranitar's not good into... my Tyranitar's not good into other Tyranitars, so I will go to Gyarados, and I paralyze this Tyranitar. So there's definitely an argument to use Taunt on Gyarados instead of Thunder Wave. It's a lot better at facilitating its own sweep, especially against bulky waters that would like to Toxic or Roar the Gyarados. But I figured for this team, there's too many times where there's a threat that's too fast that I need to slow down for any number of reasons, like for my Metagross or for my Tyranitar or for my Snorlax, in addition to Scizor. So I opted to switch Taunt for Thunder Wave here, and I think this is going to pay off for me. I will go to Breloom, who should take a Rock Slide fairly easily. Now Gengar comes in, and I go for Stun Spore. So Spore would have been kind of nice as well, but I didn't want Gengar to be a sleep sack, and if I could make it slower, then it's really, really not that dangerous for my team anymore. So I decided to go for the Stun Spore instead. Now I can just simply switch to Tyranitar, who is going to trap this Gengar pretty easily. So I go for Crunch, expecting my opponent not to switch out. I figure that because my opponent knows, because they're a high-ranked player, they would know that I've got to pursue Tyranitar here. So I can just simply take it out there. Smeargle's going to come in and get its spikes up. Fair. I'm just going to take that and kill with the Tyranitar. And then in comes Swampert. If I had HP Grass, that would be kind of nice, but I don't. Instead, I'm going to Crunch. Substitute Swampert with no item seems like end pert to me, and end pert can be pretty nasty. It's gonna go for a substitute. I'm just gonna blow up to guarantee that I break the sub, and then I can go to Breloom, who should be faster than Swampert and is threatening to Spore it. I do get my Spore off, and now I can go for, I think, Focus Punch. I managed to catch the Metagross on switch in, which is pretty nice. It heals out of range of Sky Uppercut, but I still go for Sky Uppercut just to get the damage anyway. It's actually a special Gyarados, which is kind of novel. I mean, not that novel because I have it. So I'll go for Earthquake, thinking it's pretty free, but Aerodactyl is the last Pokemon. I'll have to go to Metagross here to stop a Rock Slide. I've not gotten burned any of my sleep turns, so I'm guaranteed to sleep, and I will get Earthquaked. And in fact, I will get Earthquaked again. I live the roll and I wake up to break the sub, which is like basically exactly what I needed in order to be able to win this game. I would have lost on the spot if that didn't happen, but I get kind of lucky there. Now I can go to Gyarados. I will Earthquake and kill this Metagross. Aerodactyl comes in. At this stage, the most dangerous thing is to let this arrow have its sub, so I will go for my HP Flying to break it. Then I can go to Scizor. So Scizor should live a Rock Slide. It does. And I will go for Hidden Power Rock. That was mostly to break a sub if it went for it. This is the Lychee Berry Aerodactyl set that I was mentioning a little bit earlier, where it substitutes down to 1 HP so that it can get its Lychee boost, so that it's still effectively a Choice Bander. It can just switch its moves. But my opponent opts to go for Rock Slide instead, so I get the kill with Scizor. At this stage, my reversal does not deal enough to the Tyranitar, so I will endure down to 1 HP, so that my reversal is strong and then gets the KO on the guy, and then I can reversal and kill there. So the SD boost was not even necessary for the Scizor, which was really nice in this case. But yeah, it did take a little bit of luck there. If the Tyranitar got paralyzed going for Rock Slide, I probably would have had to go in and sack my own Tyranitar, because I needed my Scizor to get down to 1 HP. And I could have maybe also with the spikes. Actually, let's see what we were at. We were at 46. We would have taken another 16. I would have been at 30%. Potentially could have been enough to kill the Tyranitar there. We probably would have been in the 100 base power range. So maybe, but just things played out pretty well for me. I'm not gonna deny that. I think the biggest thing was that Metagross wake up into not dying to the Earthquake, into Metagross wake up to break the sub. That facilitated the whole rest of the game for me. Otherwise, I would have needed like a Rock Slide miss on my Gyarados. But thankfully that it didn't come down to all that. This team was really hard to use, I'll admit. It's really fast-paced games, so you can get a lot of reps in. And if you're looking for a fast-paced team, and you like that hyper offense style, I think you should give this a try. I don't think I would bring this to like a tournament or anything. Scizor is pretty inconsistent. There are a lot of Pokemon that Scizor just cannot handle. I didn't bother doing a matchup chart because it really, like, with this Scizor set, it literally comes down to how many boosts do I need for reversal to kill, and if I don't kill with reversal, can HP Rock kill? And if there's a Pokemon that can say no to both of those things, then Scizor is just bad. Like, it's not going to do anything. But I digress a little bit here. Um, yeah, that's the Scizor team. I hope you see why we kind of call it the comeback king. It literally just comes in, goes down to 1 HP, and then sweeps the opposing team if the right amount of prep work was done beforehand. Um, but yeah, that's all I've got. So I hope you will uh, come back for another ADV video. I think I know what mon I'm gonna do next. It has a little bit of similarities to some of the other mons I've covered, so that maybe that'll give you a little bit of a hint. Um, and yeah, also check out my draft league content if you're into that. If you're not into that, I understand. But that those will be getting uploaded this week as well. So see you for the next video.